It is time for clue 2 for the Puzzle Mystery Quilt project. I got the email and everything's all set, so we're getting ready to start. Now this one was a little trickier. It was just a little trickier when I started working through it. The way I know it's trickier is because I actually did go ahead and make scrap blocks of the same pattern. At the end, I'll show you those scrap blocks. I don't know if it'll go together. I don't know if it'll work in the very end, but at the very least I have some blocks that I can play with and maybe make some other things out of. Now somebody did ask me how I know the sizes. Well, I know the sizes because I measured everything. So before I sewed anything together, I took the measurements and wrote them down. That way I actually have a pattern too afterwards. So if I want to make this again, I can. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, the Puzzle Mystery Quilt is through Cotton Cuts. It is a really cool program where they send you all of the pieces pre-cut and you make a block or block units, I should say, because sometimes you make more than one block. In this one, we're making 2 different units. Anyway, it will all come together at the end when you have all these units. We'll put that puzzle together and see what our final quilt is. The program lasts 10 months, and if you're interested in signing up, I do have a code that you can use and get a free gift with that. So let's get started putting this one together. The first thing that I do, and I suggest you do this too, is I count everything, take an inventory, and make sure all the components are here. And then also I measure them, like I said before, to make a scrap quilt, because I want to keep replicating this. There are a lot of half square triangles in this one. And there are also 2 flying geese units where we use these bigger pieces. So we're gonna do it out of order like we did before. If this is confusing, I'm so sorry. For me, this is the way my brain works, and I know a lot of people in the comments last time said that they like that I did it out of order because it just makes sewing more efficient. We do have to pay attention to the pressing, however, because the pressing is different with the half square triangles. Some of them press to the dark, some don't, but I will go through all of that when we get started. The first units we're going to make, going out of order, is the flying geese units. That's going to allow us to get some of these half square triangles out of the way so we can just plow through and make a bunch of half square triangles. So let's get started. So we're going to make our flying geese units first. The flying geese units are the big triangles of the background. So you can see these are the smaller ones. We're going to use the 2 big ones. And we're also going to make sure that we follow the instructions here, put the placement in the right position. So this is the unit we are making. We're going to put the B and E. So the B is going to be to the right and the E is going to be to the left. That's very important when we're making this unit. Go back to our tray. I'm going to take 2 of the B units, 1 for each block, and 2 of the E. Making sure I put my tags back in the right place. So the B's go on this side and the E's go on this side. Oops, I grabbed an extra one. Let me put that back. Now, historically, I've had trouble making this unit. I am terrible at using this method. I usually use squares on top of a rectangle, and then I use the block lock ruler system. So I struggle with this. Because of that, I know myself, and I am going to actually use this glue. This is by Acorn. It's Precision Piecing Products, and I'm just going to use a little bit of this glue to glue this on. However, Cotton Cuts does a good job at cutting the notches or the corners, dog ears, out so you can line it up. That's always a great method. I just know myself, and this is the way I'm going to do it. So to glue these, we're going to get our mat here, and I'm just going to take a little bit of this glue, put tiny dots on the fabric just like that, and then put my right sides together, line it up, and you do have to heat set this. And I just use a teeny tiny bit, and I'm going to do that with this one, and I'll heat set both of them. Line it up really well, and just hit it with the iron to heat set it. This does wash out, so it's not a huge deal, but it makes my life easier. So we do one at a time. We're going to do B side first, and I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch down on each of these sides. Okay, like always, we're going to set our seam. So this is sewn. It's hard to see, but it is sewn. I'm going to set the seam by laying my iron right on top of it, and then I'm going to just open it and finger press And it does tell us in the instructions to press towards the new piece that we added on. And along with this glue system, they also have a pressing system with this pen, which I'm just loving it. It makes everything so flat. Not sponsored or anything by that. I just love the product. You don't need a lot. Just need a little bit right in that edge. I let it soak in for a second and then just go in with the iron. And it makes them so flat. I'm also gonna use my clapper, and that clapper just pulls the heat up through. Now we're ready to add the E unit to the sides, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing by gluing. Whoops, wrong tool. Placing it on here and pressing. Okay, both of these are ready to sew. I'm gonna sew 1/4 inch along the edge, just like I did before, and that glue just gave it some stability. All right, I hope I did okay. I'm gonna set those seams. Press open, or press the piece open. I don't mean the seam open. Not bad. Look, that one has a little bit of a notch on the top. I'm not sure if that'll affect it or not. We'll see. That one's pretty good. Oof. Okay, that's a little wonky. I can already tell, and that might be a bias issue. Maybe the piece wasn't cut exactly on grain, or maybe it was my sewing, but it's definitely got some wave to it. Let that soak in. This must be like some sort of starch. That's what I'm thinking, but it's great. I'll put a link in the description below. And it has this refill stuff that you use to fill this pen. It's really great. That evened that out a little bit. Okay, now that we have those done, our next step is putting our half square triangles together. And we're gonna be making 16 half square triangles. I have up on the screen right now the list of all of them, how they go together. So make sure you pause, take a screenshot, jot them down, or even mark it on your instruction sheet, because all we're doing is making all of these. Now, the one thing I do want you to notice is how they are pressed before you go to the pressing mat. That is really, really important. The other tip I have for you is I made up some little cards. You can see them here. These are what colors, like the A, B, the, let's see, BE, whatever the two that go together are, and then I'm going to clip these onto the half square units when I'm all done sewing them together. To sew these together, you're going to put right sides together and sew 1/4 inch down the side, making sure everything is lined up. So here are all our half square triangle units. A couple things that might trip you up. One of them is to make sure that the D fabric doesn't get mixed up with the A fabric. You can see how close they are. The other thing is for the A and E units, 2 of them get pressed to the dark and 2 get pressed to the light. So keep that in mind when you're making this block. So we have all of these, all 16 of our half square triangles. We have our 2 flying geese units. I did have to take these apart and redo them because they were not the right size, which I kind of knew would happen. And I used a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance on these. Now you might be worried about the glue. That glue pulls right off. It's temporary, I think, but it was no problem at all. And I just did a scant 1/4 inch. You can see that here. A scant 1/4 inch is just a little bit smaller than a 1/4 inch. So this is the right size now. We are going to start assembling. We also need our two longer strips and 2 shorter strips. So we're gonna go to the instructions and see what our steps are. Set these aside and get started. Okay, so we are going to start with 2 here. The second step, we're gonna put an A and C together and an A and E together. And we're gonna do that 2 times. So you see the 2 there. So here's an A and C. We'll lay both of them out. And we need 2 of the A and E's. And it's the A and E's that are pressed towards the E. So I want to make sure of that. This one and this one. I'm going to make sure to clip that on because we're going to use those in a little bit. So we're going to sew these together, right sides together. Oh, and look at that. They lock into place. That's why pressing is so important. And I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch along each of these edges and press them. It tells us to press towards the E side, which is what I'm going to do. Okay, so these are finished. You can see them here, and I pressed to the E side. Now we're going to start building some units. So we're going to work on this one here, and we're going to need our flying geese for that. That goes there. We also need these ones. This goes here, and this goes here. Oh, look at that. It makes an arrow. How cool is that? We're going to make 2 of these. I'm going to set these aside for right now, because while we're going to the machine, we're also going to make this unit. And this unit and this unit are going to go onto this unit. So let's make this one too. Okay, so we need a DE, 2 DEs, because we're making 2, but for 1 unit we need a D and an E, and it goes that way. We need an A and an E, which goes this way. And we need one of these little guys. There we go. So we're going to make 2 of these too. I'm going to go to the sewing machine and do that now. Okay, so these units are done and everything's pressed, and I also squared it up according to the measurements on the sheet, and these 2 units are done. So we're going to put these units together. We are placing this unit next to this one. Look at how cool that is. Here, let me get it in the camera view a little bit better. Wow! And everything nests, which is great too. So we're going to do that twice. We're going to do that with this one too. And that's going to complete this unit here. That's the end of these 2 units that we're making. So next we're going to make this unit, which is down here. And you can see it's really simple too. Follow the directions for the layout and press it correctly. So let me finish these up and we'll take a peek at the finished blocks, and then I'll show you the scrappy version. We're finished, yay! So we have the bigger block, which is 2A, and the smaller block, which is 2B, and you have 2 of each of these blocks. They turned out great. The one thing I do want to say is I did end up using a scant 1/4 inch throughout because I was finding things were getting a little wonky. I'm sure that's probably because these are cut on a machine and maybe the straighter grain wasn't exact, and that's going to happen with kits sometimes. You just kind of have to learn to work with it. As promised, here is the scrappy versions alongside of the funnel cake version. This is clue number 1. You can see how it looks so different. You could do this with different colorways. You could do it any way you want. Do it brights, whatever you'd like. It'll just give you a totally different look. And this is month 2. And again, if I did some white background with maybe some pastels or bright colors, you could really see how the difference would stand out. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you take some time to sew, and I will see you real soon. Bye.